Can you discuss linear versus progressive lowering springs?
Hmm.
Yeah, so basically, when a spring compresses, it has a rate that it compresses. So when you compress it a certain distance, it requires a certain force. Linear rate springs uh, have a force that increases in a linear fashion to the distance it's been compressed. So if you compress it 1 inch, it's 50 pounds. If you compress it 2 inches, it's 100 pounds. The more you compress it, the compression curve is linear. A progressive spring, as the name suggests, means that as the spring compresses, it gets stiffer. Um, the rate gets stiffer. Obviously, the compression gets stiffer the more it compresses, but the rate at which it increases is progressive or nonlinear. Um, the reason progressive springs are so good for street-driven cars is that first, quarter-inch or half-inch of travel, you can make that softer. And then once things start compressing more, say when you go into a corner and the body rolls, the spring gets stiffer and resists compression the more it's being compressed. So that means you can have a relatively comfortable ride as you're just kind of cruising. But as the need for spring compression grows, the spring responds by being stiffer and providing more control in the situations that you want it.
Yeah.
So typically we run, many of our springs are progressive rate. And again, for a street car or not a race car, it's typically the best option. And also allows a lowering of the car without increasing the stiffness too much. So there's a lot of interesting stuff about springs, but a progressive spring, the thickness of the coil will get thinner or thicker depending on what you want it to do. So the softer coils are a smaller diameter, and so the spring steel is drawn out and kind of stretched out so that it goes from narrower to thicker in the part of the spring that's going to be the stiffest. So, um, yeah, it's hard to say. I think I have heard people say, "Oh, progressive rate springs are bad. You should only run linear, or vice versa."
Yeah, we
Um,
have a combination of either depending on the application.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
tuned for the application.